The smell arrived before the trucks. It was not manure exactly. It was sharper than that. Sweet, metallic, and wrong, like wet pennies left at the bottom of a grain bin. Calvin Mercer noticed it on a gray Monday morning in February of 2020, while he was walking the west drainage ditch of his corn ground outside Millbrook County, Iowa. He was 64 years old. He had walked that ditch after hard weather for most of his life. That morning, he was looking for washed-out tile outlets after 3 days of thaw. But when he reached the cottonwood at the road corner, he stopped. Across the gravel road, on an old pasture that had not carried cattle in 6 years, men in blue rain jackets were pushing survey flags into the ground. One flag, then another, then another. Calvin stood there with his boots sunk halfway into black mud and counted 27 of them before he turned around. He did not call the county. He did not call his neighbors. He went back to the machine shed, pulled a black binder off the shelf above the workbench, and laid it beside his coffee. On the spine, in faded marker, it said, "Water, North Line, 1989 to present." Most men keep a few records because the bank makes them. Calvin Mercer kept records because his father taught him that water has a memory. And if nobody writes it down, the wrong people get to pretend it never happened. Calvin had farmed 412 acres along Willow Run since he took over from his father in 1991. It was not showpiece land. The South 80 was good loam. The East Field could make corn look easy in the right summer. But the North Quarter was the kind of ground that made impatient men poor. A tight clay layer sat less than 2 feet below the surface. In March, water perched on it like glass on a tabletop. In June, if the tile was clean, that same ground could make 180 bushels of corn, and make you feel smart. If the tile was not clean, it made yellow corn, shallow roots, and excuses. Calvin did not trust excuses. His father, Earl Mercer, had dug the first drainage trench on that farm in 1978 with a borrowed backhoe and a cigarette hanging from his mouth. Earl wrote down everything. Rainfall, tile flow, where the ditch cut, where the water stood, which outlet cleared first after a storm, which field held a smell it should not have held. When Calvin inherited the farm, he inherited the habit. By the time those survey flags appeared across the road, the Mercer workbench held binders going back more than 40 years. Most of them looked useless to people who had never had to prove a field was telling the truth. The pasture across the gravel road had belonged to the Rosner family for 2 generations. Then the last Rosner boys sold it in 2018. The buyer was a company called Heartland Nutrient Recovery. The name sounded clean. The plan was not. Heartland wanted to build a liquid waste receiving facility on the old pasture. Trucks would bring in byproduct from dairies, hog barns, and food processors. The company would store it in lined ponds, treat it, and send it back out for land application. On paper, it was recycling. In the wrong place, it was a funnel. Calvin knew that because every hard rain on that pasture moved downhill toward his north tile line. He had watched it happen in 1993, when a spring flood cut a new channel along the fence. He had watched it again in 2008, when 4 inches of rain in one night sent pasture water straight into his intake basin. He had photographs from 2013, when runoff carried bean straw, limestone dust, and a dead raccoon through the same draw and left them piled against his fence. Those things were not opinions. They were dates. So on March 9, 2020, Calvin wrote his first letter. He wrote to the State Environmental Office. He wrote to the county zoning administrator. He wrote to the 3 county supervisors. He did not say the company was evil. He did not say the facility could never be safe. He said the site was wrong. He attached 6 photographs. He attached 2 soil maps. He attached a hand-drawn drainage sketch based on a county conservation survey his father had requested in the 1980s. He included 3 rainfall events: June 1993, May 2008, and April 2013. He wrote, in one plain sentence, that a containment failure on the north pasture would not stay on the north pasture. It would move through surface drainage and old subsurface pathways directly into the Mercer tile system. 11 days later, he got a form letter. The project was under review. His comments had been received. That was all. In April, Calvin drove 47 miles to the public hearing at the county courthouse. He wore the same brown chore coat he wore to check calves. Hartland brought an engineer, 2 consultants, a lawyer, and a slide deck. They said the ponds would be double-lined. They said the facility would meet state standards. They said modern containment technology had made old fears unnecessary. Calvin got 3 minutes. He opened the black binder. He spoke about water. He spoke about the clay shelf. He spoke about the way the draw carried runoff in a fast thaw. One supervisor nodded. One shuffled papers. The third kept looking at the company engineer. When Calvin finished, the engineer said the design accounted for normal drainage behavior. Normal. That was the word Calvin wrote at the top of his notebook that night. Then he underlined it twice. By August of 2020, the facility was operating. The first trucks came before dawn. They rolled past Calvin's mailbox with covered tanks and clean company logos, and they turned into the old pasture like nothing permanent had changed. For a few weeks, nothing obvious happened. The ditches stayed quiet. The north corn finished green. The tile outlets ran clear after ordinary rain. Then came the storm on October 14th. 2.6 inches in less than 5 hours. Not a disaster. Not even unusual for that country. Just the kind of rain that shows you what land has been hiding. The next morning, Calvin walked to the third tile outlet along Willow Run. He carried a flashlight, a notebook, and 4 sterile sample bottles he had ordered online with his own money. The water coming out of the tile was moving at a normal rate. That was the first thing he wrote. The second thing was the smell. Not strong, not dramatic. Just that same metallic sweetness, thin enough that another man might have doubted himself. Calvin crouched and shined the flashlight along the edge of the creek bed. A pale gray film had collected where the current slowed. He had never seen it there before. He filled 1 bottle from the tile outlet, 1 from the creek above the outlet, 1 from the creek below it, 1 from standing water near the fence line. Then he drove the samples to a private agricultural lab in Ames. The bill was $178. He paid it with a farm check. He did not tell Hartland. He did not tell the county. He waited. 9 days later the report came back. Ammonium nitrogen was elevated. Chloride was elevated. Potassium was elevated. The conductivity reading was more than 4 times the baseline from Calvin's own well and creek samples. None of that proved a catastrophe. But it proved one thing that mattered. Something from that facility had found water it was not supposed to find. Calvin mailed the report by certified mail on November 2nd. He mailed 1 copy to the state, 1 to the county, 1 to Hartland, and 1 to a lawyer in Des Moines, whose name he had written on an envelope 2 years earlier, just in case. Nobody shut the plant down. Hartland said the sample did not prove source. The county said jurisdiction belonged to the state. The state said it would review the material. Calvin wrote those answers down too. Over the next 7 months, he became the kind of man officials dislike, because he did not sound angry enough to dismiss. He sampled after every meaningful rain. He sampled after the first hard freeze. He sampled after a January thaw that sent brown water across the road in a sheet. He bought a cheap rain gauge for the pasture side of the fence, and zip-tied it to a steel post, where anyone could see it. He copied truck arrival times from the public road. He downloaded the facility's monthly receiving volumes when they were posted. He built a spreadsheet so simple, it looked harmless. Date, rainfall, tile flow, sample location, ammonium nitrogen, chloride, potassium, conductivity, facility volume, notes. By March of 2021, the pattern was not harmless. 7 of 9 high readings followed either a heavy receiving week or a storage pond transfer within 48 hours of a rain event. The worst reading came after a transfer that Heartland's own log listed at 480,000 gallons. That day, the third tile outlet smelled strong enough that Calvin did not have to crouch. He could smell it standing up. He wrote, Outlet 3, 8:20 a.m., film present, odor present, corn residue in draw, water gray at edge. Then he underlined 2 words, film present. That spring, the north quarter did not emerge right. The corn came uneven.
In the low strips above the tile line, seedlings turned a pale, washed yellow. Calvin had seen wet damage. He had seen nitrogen loss. This was different. The plants looked burned at the root. He paid for tissue tests. He paid for another soil test. He paid for a camera inspection of the tile line. By then, he had spent more than $3,000 proving a problem that the permit said should not exist. His wife, Marlene, watched him at the kitchen table one night sorting lab reports into plastic sleeves. She asked him if he thought any of it would matter. Calvin did not answer right away. Then he said, "It already matters. The question is whether they have to admit it." The formal complaint was filed in June of 2021. The lawyer's name was Dana Whitlock. She specialized in agricultural drainage and nuisance cases, which meant she understood 2 things most people in offices did not understand: water moves and farmers notice. At their first meeting, Dana opened Calvin's banker box of records and went quiet. For nearly half an hour, the only sound in the room was paper. Finally, she looked up and said, "How far back does this go?" Calvin said, "Depends what you need." She said, "All of it." The complaint did not accuse Heartland of poisoning a county. It did something more dangerous. It made a narrow claim and supported it. It argued that Heartland's north containment cell, transfer pad, or underdrain system was allowing nutrient-rich liquid to migrate off-site during rain events, entering the Mercer drainage network and Willow Run.
It cited 19 lab samples. It cited 42 years of drainage records. It cited photographs from before the facility existed. It cited public receiving volumes. It cited tile camera footage showing chemical staining inside one lateral on the north quarter. Heartland called the evidence circumstantial. Then Dana showed the timeline. The room changed. Because a single lab report can be argued with, a farmer's complaint can be brushed aside. But 19 samples, set against years of ordinary water behavior, are not a complaint anymore. They are a map. The state ordered a limited inspection in September, then a broader one in October. By November, the inspectors had found what Heartland's design drawings had not wanted to imagine: a scene failure in the West Liner anchor trench, a blocked leak detection drain, and a gravelly utility trench that ran southwest from the pad area toward the old pasture draw. In dry weather, it was invisible. In rain, it worked like a Berry gutter. It did not carry everything. It carried enough. Heartland was ordered to stop receiving liquid waste at the Millbrook site pending repairs and monitoring. The company appealed. The appeal failed. The redesign cost them $920,000. The monitoring wells, tile remediation, and off-site cleanup added another $260,000. Calvin's settlement came later, in May of 2022. The terms were private. The north quarter tile was replaced. The damaged strip was deep-ripped, limed, flushed, and replanted. A monitoring point was installed at the road ditch. The old pasture never looked the same again. Neither did the people who had called his concerns old-fashioned. No one apologized in a way that mattered. The county supervisor who had looked at the engineer instead of Calvin said, months later, that nobody could have predicted the trench issue. Calvin did not correct him. He only went home and opened a binder from 1993. There, in his father's handwriting, was a note about runoff cutting through that exact draw after a June storm. Earl Mercer had written it with no lawyer in mind.
No hearing, no company, no settlement, just a farmer looking at water and deciding it deserved a record. In October of 2022, Calvin walked the third tile outlet after the first hard fall rain. The air was cold. The creek was brown from ordinary silt. The tile water ran clear. No gray film. No sweet metallic smell. He crouched longer than he needed to. Not because he distrusted what he saw. Because for the first time in 2 years, the absence of a thing felt like evidence too. The next fall, the North Quarter made 179 bushels per acre. Not a record, not a miracle. Just a field returning to its own language. Calvin wrote the number in the yield log. Then he took his father's first drainage notebook down from the shelf. The cover was soft at the corners. The pages had gone yellow. On the first page, dated April 7, 1978, Earl had written one sentence. Water tells on everybody eventually. Calvin read it twice. Then he put the notebook back between the binders. He did not beat Heartland because he shouted louder. He did not win because the county suddenly understood him. He won because every rain had left a witness. Every jar had held its place in line. And for more than 40 years, one family had refused to let water speak only once. The company had a permit. Calvin Mercer had proof. And proof, like water, keeps moving until it finds the lowest place.